The Kalarans arrived in a massive ship that blotted out the sun, casting an eerie shadow over the city below. People paused in the streets, looking up in awe and fear as the colossal vessel descended silently. Its sleek metallic surface shimmered in the daylight, reflecting the puzzled faces of the onlookers. Commander Threx stood on the ship's observation deck, surveying the planet he had come to conquer. He was tall and imposing, with green skin that seemed to pulse with a soft glow. He wore an ornate uniform adorned with symbols of his rank and power. As the ship landed with a resounding thud, a loudspeaker crackled to life, and Threx's voice boomed across the city. "Welcome, Earthlings," he began, his tone dripping with condescension. "I am Commander Threx of the Calaran Dominion, and I bring a message of your inevitable subjugation." The crowd gasped, murmurs of disbelief and anger rippling through the masses. Threx's arrogance was palpable as he continued to taunt them. "You stand before a superior race equipped with technology far beyond your primitive comprehension." A sense of dread washed over the gathered crowd, while millions more watched the event unfold on screens worldwide. But among the onlookers, a small group of military scientists, including Dr. Elena Ramirez, stood in a hidden facility just outside the city. They watched with a mix of fascination and horror as the Kalarans demonstrated their weaponry with a series of dazzling displays. Threx raised his arm, and with a flick of his wrist, a beam of energy shot from a sleek handheld device, vaporizing a nearby tank. In an instant, the crowd gasped and then erupted into cheers. The Kalarans then showcased their ability to manipulate gravity, sending a small vehicle floating into the air before crushing it effortlessly underfoot. The audience was captivated by the spectacle. Back in the command center, Dr. Ramirez clenched her fists, her mind racing as she took notes. She was captivated by the Calaran technology, yet aware of its terrifying implications. The team around her was silent, their expressions grave. Dr. Ramirez had always believed in humanity's potential, but watching the Kalarans flaunt their power filled her with a sense of urgency. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowed. "We need to understand this technology," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "If we are going to stand a chance, we must find a way to exploit their weaknesses." One of her colleagues, Dr. Malik, shook his head in disbelief. "What weaknesses could we possibly find in their advanced weaponry?" he asked. "It is light years ahead of what we have." "The Kalarans are laughing at us." Dr. Ramirez shot him a determined look. "They may have superior technology, but we have something they don't. We have adaptability and creativity. Our history is full of examples where we turned the tide against overwhelming odds. If we can gather enough data and study their tech, we might discover a way to fight back." As the Kalarans continued their exhibition on the screen, Dr. Ramirez's heart raced with a mix of fear and determination. She knew that humanity was on the brink of a war it had not anticipated. But in that moment, she also felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps their so-called primitive weapons could become tools of ingenuity in the hands of those willing to fight for their survival. Meanwhile, the crowd outside continued to cheer for the Kalarans, blinded by the spectacle, unaware that humanity's fate hung in the balance. Dr. Ramirez turned back to her team with a fierce resolve. "We must get to work now," she commanded. "This is not the end. It is merely the beginning." The Kalarans settled into their temporary base, a sprawling compound established just outside the city. High-tech domes and energy shields surrounded the area, providing a stark contrast to the surrounding landscape. Commander Threx surveyed the perimeter with a sense of satisfaction. They had not only arrived but had also established dominance in this primitive world. He gathered his officers, an elite cadre of Calaran warriors and strategists, to discuss their next move. "Tomorrow," Threx proclaimed, his voice reverberating through the chamber, "we will demonstrate our superiority once more. We will crush any lingering hope these Earthlings possess. They are nothing but children playing with toys. And we are the adults here." In the hidden military facility, Dr. Elena Ramirez and her team gathered around a holographic display, studying footage of the Kalarans' weaponry and tactics. The atmosphere was tense, with the weight of their task hanging heavily in the air. They had witnessed the Kalarans' power, and doubt began to creep in among her colleagues. "These weapons are incredible," Dr. Malik said. shaking his head in disbelief. How can we possibly compete against that kind of firepower? Dr. Ramirez straightened her back, her expression resolute. We have to remember our strengths. We may not have their technology, but we have creativity, adaptability, and an unyielding will to fight for our survival. We cannot allow their laughter to intimidate us. She glanced around the room, making eye contact with each team member. I propose we devise a strategy that incorporates unconventional tactics and plays to our strengths. We need to exploit their arrogance. They think we're weak. Let's show them how wrong they are. As the team began brainstorming, ideas started to flow. They discussed old-school tactics like guerrilla warfare, using the terrain to their advantage. They envisioned creating traps and ambushes, utilizing human ingenuity to turn the Calorans' advanced technology against them. Meanwhile, the Calorans reveled in their perceived superiority. Threx was particularly taken with the energy weapon he had demonstrated earlier, convinced that it was enough to intimidate any foe. He believed humanity would capitulate rather than risk further humiliation. As the day wore on, the Calorans continued their training exercises, each display more elaborate than the last. They fired energy blasts, demonstrated flight capabilities, and showcased their speed and agility. Back in the military facility, Dr. Ramirez was determined to gather as much information as possible about the Calorans' technology. With the help of her team, she hacked into surveillance feeds from the Caloran compound, pulling data on their weapon systems, their energy shields, and their combat tactics. The information poured in, revealing intricate details that could prove invaluable. As night fell, tension built in the air. Dr. Ramirez called for a strategy meeting. The team gathered around a table cluttered with schematics and blueprints. We can't afford to underestimate them, she emphasized, her voice cutting through the murmur of apprehension. We need to think outside the box. A young engineer named Sarah proposed using EMP devices that could be fashioned from everyday materials. If we can disrupt their electronics, she suggested, even for just a moment, it could give us the edge we need. Excitement rippled through the room. They began to build on her idea, brainstorming modifications and improvements, crafting a plan that melded old-world tactics with new-age creativity. The more they worked, the more energized they became. The laughter of the Calorans faded into the background, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. With a sense of urgency, they divided tasks and set to work, fueled by the understanding that humanity's very existence depended on their success. As the hours passed, the lights in the facility glowed with determination, and the resolve in their hearts grew stronger. The Calorans may have laughed at their primitive weapons, but the humans were preparing to aim high and prove that ingenuity could overcome even the mightiest of foes. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting a warm golden hue across the military facility, Dr. Elena Ramirez gathered her team for one last briefing before the competition against the Calorans. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of anxiety and determination. The weight of their task felt heavier than ever, but the resolve in the room was palpable. Today is the day we prove our worth, Elena began, her voice steady and commanding. We've spent countless hours preparing for this moment, and we cannot falter now. The Calorans think they can easily dismiss us, but we have something they don't, a fierce spirit and an unwillingness to back down. Her words ignited a fire in the team. They had crafted a plan that combined their makeshift EMP devices with tactical maneuvers designed to exploit the Calorans' overconfidence. As they gathered their gear, each member felt the surge of adrenaline, ready to face an enemy they had come to know all too well. Meanwhile, at the Caloran base, Commander Threx paced back and forth, issuing orders to his soldiers. His bravado was unwavering, and he had little doubt that the upcoming demonstration would cement their dominance over humanity. He scoffed at the thought of Earthlings mounting any serious resistance. "Prepare the display for the competition," he commanded, his tone filled with derision. "Let us remind them of their inferiority." The competition venue was set in an open arena, surrounded by spectators from all corners of the globe, their faces filled with apprehension and curiosity. Calaran drones hovered above, capturing every moment for the intergalactic audience, eager to witness the humans' defeat. Elena and her team arrived at the arena, their hearts pounding in their chests. They took their positions, each member focused and ready. The Calarans initiated the competition with a dazzling display of aerial maneuvers and energy blasts that lit up the sky. The crowd cheered, caught in the spectacle. Frex smirked, clearly enjoying the reaction, but Elena could see the glint of arrogance in his eyes. This was their opportunity. When it was their turn, Elena's team executed their plan with precision. They deployed their EMP devices, strategically hidden within human-made drones. As the Calaran soldiers unleashed their initial barrage of firepower, the drones activated, sending out a pulse that disrupted Calaran technology. The energy blasts flickered, and for the first time, confusion spread across the faces of the Calaran warriors. Elena shouted commands, urging her team to stick to the plan. Now, move into position. The humans took advantage of the Calaran disarray, launching their old-fashioned artillery and making calculated strikes at weak points in the Calaran defense. The Calaran soldiers struggled to regain control, scrambling to communicate as their systems faltered. Frex watched in disbelief as the tide shifted. "What is happening?" he barked, his voice filled with frustration. "Re-establish communications now." Dr. Malik, one of the team's engineers, utilized the chaos to execute a surprise maneuver. With his makeshift EMP in hand, he positioned himself behind an abandoned structure and launched it directly at a cluster of Calaran soldiers, sending another wave of disruption through their systems. The crowd gasped as Calaran fighters stumbled and fell, their once imposing displays of power faltering. Elena felt a surge of hope. They were doing it. Humanity's resilience and ingenuity were shining through the chaos. As the competition continued, Elena's heart raced with each successful strike. They were exploiting the Calaran's overconfidence, turning their own technology against them. With every flicker of Calaran energy and every successful human maneuver, the balance shifted. In the control room, the tension escalated. The Calarans struggled to regain their composure, and Frex's confidence began to waver. "Prepare for a counterattack," he shouted, but the uncertainty was clear in his voice. Elena stood firm in her resolve, aware that the moment of truth was upon them. They had proven that humanity was far from primitive, and as the chaos continued to unfold, she knew they were on the cusp of a significant victory. This was no longer just a competition. It was a fight for survival, and humanity was finally taking aim. The battle raged on in the arena, chaos reigning as the Calarans scrambled to regain control. Dr. Elena Ramirez watched with a mix of exhilaration and disbelief as her team's unorthodox tactics began to yield unexpected results. The Calarans, who had once seemed invincible, now appeared flustered and disorganized, their energy shields flickering under the assault. "Keep pushing," Elena shouted, rallying her team. They had entered a fray they had never anticipated, but they were rising to the challenge, channeling every ounce of creativity and determination they possessed. The EMP drones danced through the air, weaving in and out of the Calaran formations, expertly dodging energy blasts and spreading disruption wherever they went. As the dust and debris clouded the battlefield, the humans' creativity shone through. They executed coordinated strikes, utilizing their knowledge of the arena's terrain to set traps and ambush Calaran units. They hid behind structures, launching volleys of missiles and conventional weaponry, which now felt like the tools of an ancient art form, one that was proving effective against the aliens' advanced technology. Sarah, the young engineer, had managed to modify a handful of old-fashioned grenades, using simple wiring to create miniature EMPs. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, she hurled one toward a group of Calaran soldiers clustered together, where it detonated with a satisfying burst of light, sending them sprawling. "Nice throw," Dr. Malik shouted, grinning widely. "Don't celebrate yet," Elena warned, her voice cutting through the cheers of the crowd. "Stay focused. We can't let them regroup." But as the humans pressed their advantage, Commander Threx's frustration boiled over. He couldn't allow this spectacle to continue. "Send in the heavy artillery," he commanded, his voice echoing with urgency. With a flick of his wrist, Caloran ships hovered above the arena, deploying a barrage of advanced weaponry. Energy blasts rained down like lightning, illuminating the sky in flashes of blue and green. Alina's heart raced. This was the Calorans' last-ditch effort to maintain their superiority, and the tide was about to turn again. "Get down," she yelled, signaling her team to take cover. They ducked behind makeshift barricades just as the energy blasts exploded around them, sending showers of debris into the air. The crowd gasped as the arena transformed into a war zone, tension escalating with each eruption. Through the chaos, Alina quickly assessed the situation. They had a brief moment to recover, but she knew they had to act decisively to prevent the Calorans from regaining the upper hand. "We need to disrupt their targeting systems," she said, a spark of inspiration igniting within her. "If we can knock out their command ship, it will create confusion and give us a chance to take down their artillery." Dr. Malik nodded vigorously. "I can rig a couple of drones to target their command ship. We'll have to time it just right to avoid getting shot down." "Let's do it," Alina replied, a fierce determination in her voice. "Everyone, we're going for the command ship. Focus fire on that position." As her team rallied together, a sense of urgency and camaraderie filled the air. They moved as one, coordinating their attacks with laser-like precision. Drones soared through the air, evading blasts while the team used the remnants of their cover to launch an all-out offensive. Alina felt a surge of pride as she saw her team work together seamlessly, turning the tide against their technologically superior foes. The Caloran command ship loomed in the sky, a massive vessel brimming with weapons and technology. With each second that passed, Alina's heart pounded in anticipation. They had to strike now. "On my mark," she instructed, adrenaline racing through her veins. 3, 2, 1, now. The drones unleashed a volley of missiles, targeting the command ship with precision. The projectiles soared through the air, and as they connected, a brilliant explosion erupted, sending shockwaves through the arena. The Calorans' targeting systems faltered, their artillery fire becoming erratic. Cheers erupted from the crowd, echoing through the chaos as they witnessed the impossible. Humanity fighting back. Alina felt the weight of their struggle lift for a moment. They had turned the tide against overwhelming odds, and in that moment of victory, she realized this was more than a competition. It was a testament to the indomitable human spirit. Together, they had proven that even in the face of great adversity, humanity could rise to the occasion and take aim. As the smoke cleared from the explosion, the arena erupted into chaos. Cheers and shouts echoed from the crowd, mingling with the frustrated roars of the Calorans as their command ship faltered. Alina felt a rush of adrenaline surging through her veins. They had achieved the impossible, a significant blow to Caloran superiority. But the battle was far from over. "Keep pressing forward," she shouted, urging her team to maintain the momentum. "We can't give them a chance to regroup." The Calorans, rattled but not defeated, quickly attempted to recover from the assault. Threx's voice boomed over the chaos as he barked orders to his soldiers. "Activate the secondary defense systems. Bring down those drones." Alina watched as energy shields sprang to life around Caloran units, their once flamboyant displays of confidence now tinged with desperation. They understood the stakes had changed. This was no longer just a demonstration, but a battle for survival. "Malik, do you have any more EMP devices ready?" Alina asked, glancing at her colleague, who was working furiously at a makeshift workstation set up in their area. "Almost there," he replied, sweat dripping from his brow. "I just need a few more seconds to complete the modifications." The Calorans returned fire with renewed vigor, their energy blasts lighting up the arena in a fierce dance of color. Elena ducked behind a barricade, the ground shaking beneath her as explosions erupted nearby. She felt a fierce sense of determination. They had come too far to back down now. "Sarah, help Malik finish those devices," Elena commanded, her voice cutting through the noise. "We need to hit their artillery again." As Sarah scrambled to assist Malik, Elena surveyed the arena, her heart racing. The crowd's cheers faded into a low hum as her focus narrowed. She spotted a group of Caloran soldiers attempting to flank their position, their sleek armor glinting ominously in the sunlight. They were regaining their composure, and if she didn't act quickly, they could turn the tide back in their favor. "Team, listen up," Elena called, her voice firm. "We're going to set a trap. Malik and Sarah, once those EMPs are ready, I want you to deploy them at the flanks. Everyone else, we're going to draw their fire and lure them into the open." "Understood," Malik replied, adjusting his glasses, determination written across his face. Elena took a deep breath, visualizing the plan in her mind. "Let's go." With a rallying cry, the team sprang into action. They darted from cover to cover, drawing the Calarans' attention as they moved strategically across the arena. The Calarans fell for the bait, their soldiers pursuing the humans in an attempt to eliminate the perceived threat. "Now," Elena shouted as Malik and Sarah released their EMP devices. The small drones soared through the air, glinting in the sunlight before exploding with brilliant flashes of light, sending shockwaves through the Calaran formations. Energy shields flickered and sputtered, creating openings in their defenses. "Keep firing," Elena commanded, adrenaline coursing through her. The humans unleashed a hail of projectiles, combining conventional weaponry with makeshift explosives. The Calaran soldiers struggled to regain their footing, confusion spreading among their ranks as their communication systems faltered. "Push forward," Elena urged her team, her voice rising above the din of battle. With the Calarans disoriented, the human team seized the opportunity, advancing through the chaos, working together seamlessly. Elena moved with a fierce determination, her heart pounding as they closed in on the remaining Calaran artillery positions. The Calarans, now frantic and scrambling, struggled to respond effectively, their confidence shattered. As they neared the last artillery unit, Elena caught a glimpse of Commander Threx, his expression twisted in rage and disbelief. The Calaran leader had clearly underestimated humanity's resolve. He frantically signaled for reinforcements, but Elena knew they were on borrowed time. "Finish this," she cried, urging her team onward. In a final push, they engaged the last Calaran defenses, striking with precision and teamwork. Elena felt the electric thrill of victory surge within her as they took down the final artillery unit, the explosion echoing through the arena. The crowd erupted into deafening cheers, their voices a powerful reminder of what they were fighting for. Humanity had stood against an overwhelming force and refused to back down. They had shown that even in the face of dire odds, they could rise and take aim at their oppressors. Elena paused for a moment, her chest heaving, as she absorbed the reality of their success. They had transformed from underdogs into fierce warriors, and this battle was only the beginning of humanity's newfound resolve. As the dust settled around them, one thing was clear: the Calarans were no longer laughing. The dust hung in the air, and for a moment, the arena fell silent. The cheers of the crowd gradually swelled into a cacophony of voices, reverberating against the arena walls as humanity celebrated a victory that had once seemed impossible. Dr. Elena Ramirez stood at the forefront of her team, her heart racing, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. They had done it. They had pushed back the Calarans, proving that ingenuity could outmatch even the most advanced technology. However, amid the jubilation, Elena felt a familiar sense of urgency creeping back in. The Calarans were not known for their tolerance, and she knew Threx would not take this defeat lightly. As the cheering continued, she quickly gathered her team, each of them still catching their breath after the adrenaline-laced battle. "All right, everyone," she said, her voice rising above the noise. "We've won this round, but we need to stay vigilant. The Kalerans will regroup, and we can't underestimate them again. We need a plan for what comes next." The team nodded, their expressions shifting from exhilaration to focus. Malik wiped the sweat from his brow and looked at Alina. "We should expect a counterattack, especially now that we've taken out their artillery. Threx will be furious. He'll come at us with everything he has." Sarah, still buzzing from the excitement, added, "We need to fortify our position. If they attack again, we should be ready to defend ourselves. We can't allow them to gain the upper hand again." Elena took a deep breath, her mind racing with possibilities. "We need to set up defensive measures and prepare for their next move. We can't allow them to catch us off guard again." As they strategized, the Kalaran camp was in disarray. Threx paced angrily, his soldiers moving frantically to assess the damage and regroup. His pride had been wounded, and he could feel the eyes of his warriors on him, their belief in his leadership wavering. "Get me a status report," he roared, the frustration boiling over. The Kalaran officer, a young soldier named Lieutenant Vrax, stepped forward, visibly shaken. "Commander, the humans, they're using tactics we didn't anticipate. Their resourcefulness is greater than we expected. Our systems are compromised, and we need to recalibrate quickly." Threx's anger flared, but beneath it lay a creeping fear. "Prepare the remaining forces," he commanded, forcing himself to regain control. "We cannot allow this failure to stand. Deploy our heavy units and show them what true power looks like." Back in the arena, Alina's team worked feverishly, setting up makeshift barricades and reinforcing their defenses. They had scavenged Kalaran technology and repurposed it into their own systems, using every advantage they could muster. As they labored, the tension in the air grew thick. The crowd outside began to murmur uneasily, their excitement tempered by the understanding that the Kalerans would not accept defeat quietly. Elena glanced at the horizon, scanning for any signs of the enemy's return. "Ready your weapons," she instructed her team, her voice steady. "We don't know when they'll strike, but we must be prepared." Hours passed in anticipation, the sky darkening as clouds began to gather. Then, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, illuminating the battlefield in a golden hue, a distant rumble echoed in the air. "Alina, look!" Malik shouted, pointing towards the sky. A formation of Kalaran ships soared into view, their dark silhouettes cutting through the fading light. "Brace yourselves," Alina commanded, adrenaline surging once more. The Kalaran ships unleashed a volley of energy blasts, illuminating the sky with streaks of blue and green. "Return fire," Alina yelled, her voice a rallying cry. The humans responded with a volley of missiles and small arms fire, each shot laced with determination. The arena erupted into chaos once again as the Kalerans advanced, their heavy units leading the charge. Alina's heart raced as she watched the enemy approach. But this time, she felt a surge of confidence in her team. They were not the underdogs they once were. They were a formidable force, united and ready to fight. "Stand together. We can do this," Alina shouted, her voice steady amid the storm. With newfound resolve, the team prepared to face the Kalaran onslaught. They would not back down. This was their fight, and they would show the Kalerans that humanity's spirit could not be extinguished. As the first energy blasts collided with their defenses, Alina felt the fire of determination burning brightly within her. This was not just a battle for survival. It was a battle for humanity's future, and they would fight with everything they had. The arena transformed into a battleground once more, energy blasts colliding with the makeshift barricades as the Kalerans unleashed their fury. Dr. Elena Ramirez stood at the forefront, adrenaline surging as she coordinated her team's defense against the overwhelming onslaught. The sky lit up with explosions, the air thick with smoke, and the acrid smell of burnt metal. "Hold the line," Elena shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. The humans responded with a unified roar, their determination unyielding in the face of adversity. They worked together seamlessly, their previous victories fueling their resolve as they fired back at the advancing Caloran forces. "Deploy the EMPs," Malik called, frantically adjusting a targeting system. The makeshift drones whirred to life, flying into the fray and detonating with blinding flashes, sending shockwaves through the Caloran ranks. The energy shields flickered, allowing Alina and her team to push forward and deliver concentrated fire. "Keep moving," she urged, her heart pounding in sync with the rhythm of battle. "We need to create openings." As they advanced, the Calarans retaliated with a vengeance, heavy units lumbering forward with devastating firepower. Alina could see the determination in Threx's eyes. He was desperate to regain control and crush the humans once and for all. The Calaran commander had underestimated humanity, and the taste of defeat only fueled his rage. "Reinforce those positions," Threx barked, watching as his soldiers struggled to regroup. "We cannot let them think they can defeat us." Back at the human barricades, the energy from their earlier victory began to ebb as fatigue set in. Alina felt the weight of responsibility pressing heavily on her shoulders. They had fought hard, but the Calarans were relentless, and she knew they needed to adapt quickly if they were to stand a chance. "Malik, can you modify the drones to target their heavy units?" she asked, a spark of inspiration igniting within her. "I can try," he replied, furiously typing on his device. "It'll take a few minutes, though. We need to buy some time." "Sarah, cover Malik while he works," Alina commanded, her gaze scanning the battlefield for vulnerabilities. She spotted a cluster of Calaran heavy units, their armor glistening ominously in the dim light. "On it," Sarah replied, taking her position with unwavering determination. Alina took a deep breath, grounding herself as she focused on the task at hand. She rallied her team once more, her voice steady and strong. "Listen up. We're going to create a diversion. I want everyone to concentrate fire on those heavy units. We need to draw their attention away from Malik." The humans nodded, determination rekindling in their eyes. They moved as one, a synchronized dance of strategy and precision, targeting the heavy units with everything they had. Explosions erupted around them, the ground trembling beneath their feet as the Calarans returned fire. Just as Alina had hoped, the heavy units began to shift their focus, their attention drawn away from Malik and Sarah's work. She could see Malik's fingers flying over his device, desperately reprogramming the drones. "Almost there," he shouted, his voice barely audible over the roar of battle. As the Calarans struggled to regroup, Alina seized the opportunity to push further. "Now, everyone, attack," she commanded, leading the charge forward, her heart pounding with adrenaline. The humans pressed their advantage, closing the distance between themselves and the Calaran heavy units. Malik's modifications were finally complete, and the drones launched into the fray, homing in on their targets with precision. "Watch out," Sarah shouted, her eyes wide as a Calaran energy blast came hurtling toward them. Alina reacted instinctively, pulling Sarah down just as the blast exploded above them, sending debris flying. They tumbled to the ground, but Alina quickly regained her footing, adrenaline propelling her forward. "Keep moving," she urged, adrenaline coursing through her veins as they continued their assault. The Calaran units began to falter, their defenses cracking under the pressure. Then, in a stunning turn of events, one of the modified drones detonated directly above a cluster of Calaran soldiers, the blast creating a massive shockwave. The Calaran heavy units stumbled, their armor compromised, and Alina seized the moment. "Now, hit them with everything you've got," she shouted, a fierce fire igniting in her chest. The humans unleashed a barrage of firepower, the sound of gunfire mingling with the roar of explosions. The Calaran heavy units began to crumble, their confidence shattered by the relentless onslaught. Threx watched in disbelief as his forces faltered. His face contorted in rage. He realized that this was not merely a battle, it was a turning point. The Kalarans had underestimated humanity, and they would pay the price. In that moment, Alina felt a surge of triumph. They had fought against overwhelming odds, and now they were on the brink of victory. As the dust began to settle, she looked at her team, her friends, her comrades, and knew that together they could face whatever came next. They had taken aim, and it was time to finish what they had started. The battlefield shifted as the dust settled, revealing the aftermath of the fierce confrontation. Alina stood at the forefront, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. The Kalaran heavy units had crumbled under the relentless assault, their once imposing presence now reduced to wreckage scattered across the arena. The cheers of the crowd grew louder, a roar of victory echoing through the air. But Alina felt a tension lingering in the atmosphere. "Stay alert," she shouted, rallying her team. "This isn't over yet. Threx will not give up easily." As if on cue, Alina's instincts were validated when she spotted a group of Kalaran soldiers regrouping behind the remains of their fallen units. Threx stood among them, his face twisted in a mix of fury and desperation. He raised a hand, signaling for his remaining forces to assemble. "Malik, can you do anything about those remaining units?" Alina asked, her heart racing. "We can't let them rally." "I'll try," he replied, frantically working on his device. "But I need a distraction to draw their attention." Alina nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. "Sarah, we need to create a diversion," she said, turning to her teammate. "Can you set up an EMP in the middle of their regrouping area? It'll disrupt their communications." "On it," Sarah responded, her eyes bright with determination. "I'll make it quick." As Sarah hurried to set up the EMP, Alina rallied the rest of the team. "We'll provide cover. Keep firing at the Kalarans to keep their focus on us." The humans took up defensive positions, their weapons raised, ready to unleash a volley of firepower. Alina's heart raced as she counted down the seconds, praying that their plan would work. "Now," Sarah shouted, activating the EMP device just as the Kalaran soldiers began to organize their ranks. A pulse of energy erupted, sending waves of disruption through their systems. The Kalarans stumbled, their communication links severed, confusion spreading among their ranks. Alina seized the moment. "Push forward. Keep the pressure on," she yelled, leading her team into the fray. They charged forward, launching everything they had at the disoriented Kalarans, who were struggling to regroup. Threx's fury boiled over as he watched his forces falter. "Re-establish communications," he shouted, but it was clear that his soldiers were overwhelmed, their confidence shattered. The humans pressed their advantage, a fierce determination guiding every shot. Alina felt the exhilaration of victory surging through her as they moved deeper into Kalaran territory. The tide had turned, and she could sense that they were on the brink of complete triumph. But just as she began to believe they had won, a low rumble echoed through the air. "What's happening?" Malik shouted, his voice laced with urgency. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to shake, and a massive Kalaran warship descended from the clouds, its silhouette dark against the fading light. "They're bringing in reinforcements," Alina shouted, her heart racing. "Everyone, take cover." The warship unleashed a torrent of energy blasts, sweeping across the battlefield. Alina felt the ground tremble as explosions erupted all around them. The jubilant cheers of the crowd turned to gasps of horror as the situation rapidly escalated. "Malik, we need to get that warship down," Alina called out, her mind racing. "Can we target its systems?" "Let me see what I can do," he replied, working furiously on his device. As the warship continued its assault, Alina rallied her team once more. "We can't let fear take hold. We've come too far to back down now." With renewed determination, they fired at the warship, each shot a testament to their resilience. The Kalarans, however, were not done fighting. The warship's defenses flared, returning fire with devastating accuracy. "Everyone, focus fire on that turret," Alina shouted, pointing to a particularly vulnerable area on the warship. "Now." We can do this. The humans poured their firepower into the assault, and Malik, finally ready, released a modified EMP drone. It soared through the air, hitting the warship's target with precision. The resulting explosion was magnificent, illuminating the sky in a brilliant flash as the energy shields flickered and failed. Yes, Malik cheered, the exhilaration evident in his voice. With a final push, Alina led her team forward, and they launched everything they had at the warship. As the Caloran vessel began to wobble in the air, Frex's face turned to one of horror. "Fall back," he shouted, panic finally creeping into his voice. The humans didn't relent. With one last, coordinated attack, they watched as the warship spiraled out of control, crashing to the ground with a thunderous roar. The arena erupted in cheers as the Calarans finally retreated. Exhausted but victorious, Alina stood among her team, their faces shining with a mix of disbelief and elation. "We did it," Sarah shouted, her voice filled with triumph. Alina felt tears of joy welling up in her eyes. They had faced the impossible, and against all odds, they had emerged victorious. As the crowd erupted in celebration, Alina knew that this victory was not just about winning a battle. It was a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. They had taken aim, and the universe would now see them as more than just primitives. They were a force to be reckoned with, and the stars were now within their reach.